Children of Men is a 2006 dystopian sci-fi film from director Alfonso Cuarón. It is generally considered one of the best films of the 21st century, which is a reputation I now wholeheartedly agree with. In addition to the star power of Cuarón, the film enlisted the talents of cinematographer Emmanuel Lubezki and actors in Clive Owen, Michael Caine, and Julianne Moore. Children of Men is about a fictional near future where fertility has disappeared. The world is in a state of constant uncertainty and turmoil, but there is one pregnant woman who may help save the future of mankind. I certainly knew of the film's reputation going in, but it still blew me away when I recently watched it, and I want to go over some of those reasons. I would recommend watching the movie first. I won't be giving too many specific spoilers, but I will be giving a lot of information about the movie and showing some scenes further into the movie near the end. So I believe that movies are best experienced as blind as possible, so I would encourage that kind of experience. The general bullet points are the hook, production design, cinematography, and the tension. I think this is one of the best openings I've ever seen. It's so fast and efficient with how it delivers the film's concept. It is a sort of exposition dump, but it's palatable, I think, because it delivers an intriguing concept so bluntly. The news and the concept are so striking that I'm as glued to the TV as they are. In addition to some extremely efficient scripting, we get some visual information of a couple of kinds. One is an introduction to Theo, who is marked as the person who isn't moved by the news, planting a little mystery about him. We get an introduction to the mysteriously drained yet beautiful aesthetic of the film, as we get this dark and shadow all over the people watching the screen, yet with a satisfyingly composed frame. When Theo goes outside, we get the fast-moving, long-shot style of the film for the first time. Not only is the bombing a huge surprise, it also plants fear in our minds of the chaos and the possibility that any scene really can be dangerous. Plus, the bombing is yet another story hook that the film lands in the audience. So to me, being able to land three hooks like that, namely the curiosity with Theo's character, the story as a whole, and the bombing, in about 2 minutes, while also having scenes that set up your points of stylistic emphasis, is such efficient and masterful storytelling. If you can get someone on board that fast with what you're doing, then you've got a lot of movie left that you're going to have an audience giving you the benefit of the doubt. Unless you fumble the goodwill, of course, which this film does not do. Lubezki gets plenty of love for his role as cinematographer, as he should, but he is capturing an existing physical environment set up by the production design team led by Jim Clay and Jeffrey Kirkland, which is excellent and deserving of praise as well. Both departments are equal players in creating a film's aesthetic, really, usually. If the environment is boring and lacking in visual options, then your ceiling will likely be limited. But you can also make the best environment possible, and it could be wasted by poor photography. Some of this outstanding production design work involves the locations, like the pics of a striking secret warehouse, or the selection of tunnels, or the cobbled together look of this prison apartment. Some of it is bits of information and things like newspapers, signs that give you a little more information about the world quietly. But I think the highlight is that if you look at any beautiful shot in the film, it is building off the foundation of an aesthetically interesting environment. Here, it's the fractured glass allowing for this composition where Theo is looking past this fractured, broken place formerly for children, out to nature and a bright hope. Here, the location is great, but you get something as simple as the discarded cardboard being utilized so well. And I think this is really a fantastic example of the synergy, because of the way those elements exist in the physical environment in a way that just makes sense by itself, right? We're dealing with like a kind of dystopian, kind of breaking down world where, you would associate like a lot of trash, like some things like disposal services might be breaking down too. And then you get the cinematography team working and using the light to create like almost like bounces off these cardboard boxes to extend the light further into the tunnel without making that backside of the tunnel bright, right? Like it's still dark and desolate back there. So you still get the contrast going from dark to light, and you still get, at the same time, this visual interest of the light extending into the tunnel without making much of an impact. And you do that with something as simple as cardboard, something that exists in the world. So that's adding details to the world and the cinematography team utilizing them to create this frame. Here we have a great color combination between the stone and the blue hues of that building and the tanks, even the bits of red on the lens providing like a little bit of pop. And I think there's a great visual tension in this composition because the collection of rubble and the clear path next to it create a sight line to the hospital entrance, directing your eye there. But at the same time, that corner of the frame that's blue, contrasting with the other colors, draws your eye at the same time. So there's like a visual tension where you're not exactly sure where to look, which can be a negative thing if your eye is not drawn to the proper place on the screen. But I think in this case, the fact that a lot of the action is occurring at the hospital entrance and you have different separate action, the onslaught happening in this other corner of the frame, I think is a great bit of tension visually that the film is communicating. And it's not the only place the film does this. I think also this scene in here where we have a conversation happening in this out of focus part of the frame, and there's movement that's drawing your eye, even though it's out of focus. And we also have Clive Owen in this half of the frame, who is completely in focus, but he's silent, he's listening. And so you have this other bit of tension where, under, I think, less guided direction, it could be a problem where you have a weak frame because neither part is compelling. But personally, I think that the strength of him listening and the strength of the story itself are both interesting bits of visual tension that you drift between, and both are compelling. I'm not exactly sure who's responsible for spreading the fog everywhere, but whichever department it is, the atmosphere is extremely important. But another striking feature is the lighting design on both the buoy and the boat. There's certainly a collaboration between both departments for how to design that and for where to put them. Those two light sources in the pea soup of fog and the general dreariness of that frame are such breaths of fresh air. I probably lack the vocabulary to talk too much about the lighting. It's not something I've dug into a ton, but I will try to articulate a few things, hopefully properly. I think some of the film's most powerful portraits are a result of some top lighting. In the film, sometimes it plays nicely with an actor, especially Clive Owen in this case, and their facial features. Like right here, as the mood goes from heavy to light, and we can see the light implies a darker mood, right, with the shadows over his eyes and more on his cheekbones. But then as he lays back to relax, you get like a more even exposure of the light on his face, and everything looks a little more pleasant. But also right from the jump, like the first shot we get of the movie, the light is not fully like on top of most of the actors. It's mimicking the TV light, which would be, like up there. But regardless, it's still casting shadows down on some of these actors, and you can see, especially the ones with more protruding cheekbones, the light is casting shadows on them and giving those faces textures. And then there's another one here where they're loading up the boat. This strong top lighting, it gives more of a religious feeling to me, which is certainly not the only shot in the film that implies like some religious influence. Even this light from heaven sort of aesthetic doesn't make the frame nice and cheery and happy. The environment is still fairly run down around it, as you can see, another element of production design there contributing. Even at its most illuminating, that lighting style is like a moment of rest rather than a complete mood change. It's just like something slightly lifting the burden, but the burden is still there. And lastly, the skill and coordination to pull off some of this stuff is incredible. I think this can be summarized well in the scene outside the hospital. Yeah, we have this fantastic shot that I already talked about right here, but that shot comes in the middle of such a long take already. You've set up the scene, and you need the skill and the practice to be able to hit your mark, frame it right, go over, look at something else, right? They already panned around back there, and then come back, hit the mark again, hit the framing right again. It's extraordinary. I can't even imagine how much work went into getting some of these moments just right. They do get them right. They're fantastic. And then last thing, I think the bombing in the opening sequence is important for the tension, to set the tone that the environment is unstable and always holds danger. I don't think we ever get another full-on surprise like we do in the opening. Like everything else, you can kind of feel coming and you kind of dread it coming because you know what the movie is capable of. I don't think that the fact that you know that something bad is coming takes away from those moments, because it just adds to the feeling of dread. Because, like I said, you know what the movie's capable of. You know something bad can and probably will happen, especially by the time we get to Act 3 with the climactic run. I feel the tension the whole time, and it's such a helpless feeling of tension as well, because it's not their fault, and essentially all the circumstances are outside their control. This film is probably an all-timer for me. It not only has the base of an intriguing, well-supported story, but it also builds on top of that with excellent, evocative, technical, and artistic work that adds layers of appreciation to the words on the page. And that's really what I search for in film. The extra things that only movies can do that create emotion and evoke a response. And I think that in that way, Children of Men is a masterclass in movie magic.